This happened to me in early 2008. I lived in a small suburb, a very family-friendly neighbourhood, although I live by myself. I'm a female, my name is Fen, and I was 29 at the time. I'd been living in this particular house for about 7 months when I got a knock at the door one morning. It was about 6 a.m. I answered and a man stood at the door. He was well built, probably about 6'1", completely bald with a short beard. He said he lived next door, to the left of my house. His voice was slow and soft, and he lacked any emotion in his face. "Nice to meet you," I said. "I was hoping I might be able to borrow an electric mixer from you," he said. Yeah, sure," I replied, and went and grabbed the mixer. I really wanted to get along with my neighbours, so I tried to be as nice as possible. I gave him it, and he left. I thought nothing of it, until I got a call the same night from that man. I answered. "Hey, I just wanted to invite you over for coffee. I live alone and have been trying to get to know people in my neighbourhood," he said. It seemed strange to me. We had only just met, and it was a bit early for a house call. In fact, it was a bit early to be lending things to each other. I said I had to work and to make a rain check. "Okay," the man said in a neutral tone, and hung up the phone. I was surprised that the man lived alone, since it was a very big house with at least 4 or more bedrooms and a very well kept backyard and garden. I kept an eye on him after that. I watched him from my window. All you could see from the inside of his house was a dining table, which seemed to be in the kitchen. The man would often sit there and stare blankly at nothing. He'd be there for hours. I'm pretty sure there was no TV. It was very freaky. I tried to avoid him from there on. About 2 weeks later, I was asleep and it was just past 2 in the morning when there was a knock on the door. It was loud and recurring. It would happen every 5 or so seconds. There'd just be another couple of knocks. Eventually, once I realized what was happening, I looked out the window and saw the man standing at my door. I was never going to open it. For what reason could this man have to be at my door at this time of night? I just prayed that I had locked my doors and windows. After 10 minutes of knocking, he left. I barely got back to sleep that night. I was feeling scared of this man. In my own house, I didn't feel safe. Work became a pleasure, as I wasn't looking behind my back waiting for this guy to pop up. It seems strange that the man never leaves the house except to come over to my house. I don't even know where he gets his food. Does he have a job? If so, who would hire him? The car in the driveway hadn't been touched in the 3 weeks this had been going on. I found myself staring at the house obsessively all the time. From a third party, it would look like I'm the stalker. The lack of activity was off-putting. I would see the man walk across windows every now and then, but for hours on end, there was nothing. What was he doing the whole time? One day, I was cleaning my house, and I thought I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I looked and saw the man standing at his window, staring into mine right at me. I know what you're thinking. I did the same thing. But this was different. This guy had the creepiest smile on his face. And it was like he didn't even know I could see him. He was just staring without moving. At that moment, I knew this guy was dangerous. It made me so uncomfortable. I just moved out of view. Eventually, I looked back and he was gone. I was scared as hell after that. This guy clearly had something wrong with him. And he was my neighbour. Quite hard to avoid neighbours. But I gave it a good shot. I was bringing in my shopping from the car one day. I tried to keep all the activity on the other side of the house. As I was carrying it in, a friendly neighbour on the other side asked if I needed any assistance. No thanks, I said. No problem, he replied. I don't believe we've met. We then introduced ourselves and started chatting. Eventually, I brought up the courage to ask what I've been dying to ask the whole conversation. Hey, I said, what do you think of the house on the other side of mine? He then replied, oh yes, the Tannins. Beautiful family. Wait, what? I said, confused. I thought only one man lived there. No, he said. There's David Tannen, his 2 kids, and his wife Mary. I was shocked. What's going on? I thought. Is his father a bald man? I asked. Not the last time I saw him, he replied. He had quite long hair. I was stunned. I said goodbye to my neighbour and went inside. I then called the police. I told them of my suspicions. They came quickly to check the house. Whoever the man was, they didn't find him. What they did find was much worse. David Tannen and his family laid butchered throughout the house. They had been stabbed hundreds of times. Their decomposed bodies had been there for at least a month, and someone had been living there ever since. The investigators couldn't even work out what he could have been doing all day. The bodies were untouched since the day they died. There was no sign of any activity from the man, besides a couple of small things. The man even paid the electricity bill. Not that he used it. I don't like to think what would have happened if I had gone over there that night. Or if I'd opened the door. Too horrifying to contemplate. The man was never found. For the days after the findings, I could only imagine the twisted and sick things the man did to those people with my electric mixer. But no. According to police, he simply baked a cake.